Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of B is for Build. This episode is a continuation of our 9-day journey to get this Texas Speed engine to start. And in this episode, the engine does start, but not without some issues before and after. I hope you guys enjoy. Stay tuned. Before we get to work, I want to take a second out to thank our fake sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Fram. I bought 6 of them for $1. Find the Fram 6-pack at a local dollar store. Okay guys, I was kidding. I understand you do not like Fram oil filters. If you have a recommendation, please leave a comment below and I will order one. Now let's get down to work. All right, we struggled with the software, but we got through it. We just needed to plug a plug-in to the right spot. So everything is reading. We have our base map that was built by the guys at Haltech set up on the engine. It is go time. It's time to crank this thing over. But first, before we turn on our fuel pumps, we're gonna give the starter a few cranks. That's gonna crank our oil pump, and we're gonna make sure that we have oil pressure and that oil is getting fed to things like the turbos and all that other stuff, for instance, before we turn this on. Then we're gonna go ahead and turn it on. Once we turn this thing on, we need to run it until it cycles all the way up in temperature. And we gotta kind of vary the RPM so we don't get any flat spot on the cam. So kind of a technical run, and what we really don't wanna have to do is run it for a little bit and then shut it off. That would be bad. So let's get the oil pressure check done first. All the ECU. Okay, well, you guys remember the last time we started this thing up, we had a bunch of issues with the start, not sending enough power through. So we added a ton of grounding straps, and that's how we got it to start last time. But right now, our power cable is really heating up, and we think that we have a bad lug on the end of the power cable going to the starter. So we found some like heavy duty ones, much better. We're gonna go ahead and install one of those, and then we'll give it another try. All right, well, our plans got a little foiled last night by, once again, a lack of, like, starting powers. So we got some sort of a problem. It's either not enough power in the power cable going to it, maybe not a high enough gauge cable, something like that, or it's grounding and grounding straps issue. So I'm gonna do some testing stuff with a set of jumper cables. We're gonna come up with a solution, and then I'm gonna implement that solution so this problem will be gone. But I will tell you that we did crank it last night and we did get oil pressure. So once I figure this thing out and we get it consistent, we're good to go and we can start it up. Alright guys, so what we did was we upgraded the wiring system going all the way underneath that runs back to the starter. We added that inline fuse that a lot of you guys commented on that you wanted to see in the front distribution box. 175 amp fuse should be enough, and then that runs back to our starter, and we've tested out starting it. It's really good. So next step, we're ready to start this car. We're gonna get our fuel system running, make sure the fuel system gets primed up. It's firing up time. I'm so nervous, dude. I'm so nervous. Alright guys, we're gonna start this thing up for the first time. This is the most nervous I think I've ever been on B is for Build. And we're gonna find out how loud it is.
Yeah, that's...
Just getting ready. Alright, here we go. Interesting. It didn't even try. We'll test our spark, take our fuel back out and test our spark.
Take our fuel back out, yeah.
All right, I'm less nervous now. All right guys, we've been troubleshooting quite a bit. We have spark. we have fuel, so our timing in one way or another is off, and we're having a little bit of trouble with kind of our initial configuration. Luckily, being sponsored by Haltech, they're willing to help us out here. So one of their top technicians is going to remote into our computer and help look through our base map that they hooked us up with, and just kind of make sure that everything makes sense and everything looks right, so we can get our timing set up so this thing will want to fire. All right, we're continuing troubleshooting. Thanks to the guys at Haltech, we at least diagnosed one pretty big issue, which is that we have too much resistance between the engine, like in the engine starter, and the battery negative. So it could be that we only have tack welds in our battery, like near our battery ground, to like our frame mount, or it could be that our grounding straps are garbage. It could be a bunch of different things. We're gonna go ahead and improve on all of those, and we'll just let you know when we get it done. Alright guys, so we're on the phone with Haltech right now. We got a lot of things fixed up, added more grounding straps, way less resistance. We're actually going to go ahead and try and fire right now for the first time. Close! Alright, it looks like it's going to work. We're gonna get it. Oh wait, we got some DTCs. Woohoo, we're close! This is exciting.
Smells like success.
Oh, I think we need a little throttle. And let off the throttle because it's just, we're rich. So I don't know how much of that you guys heard, and I also don't know how much I'll edit out, but it was running, but it just really seems like the timing's off. So we need to figure out an accurate measurement of our timing. So we need to find top dead center of the engine. From there we can mark it on the crank, and then we can use a timing light. Once we're sure our timing's on, set it in the ECU, and it should be running like way better, because basically it should just go from there. So, you know, we're getting a lot closer, but we still got a little bit of work to do. So we got to go buy some tools, because we don't have any of that stuff. So, be right back. All right, guys, we're back from the store, and here's how we're going to find top dead center, and I'm going to try and make this really quick. Top dead center is when your piston is all the way up. That is basically the base level for measuring your timing for your engine, which is kind of, the timing is how you're gonna spark, when you're gonna spark, so the fuel gets ignited in the right way and makes some more horsepower. So to find when your piston is all the way up, the easiest way to do it when we're in a situation like this is to pull a spark plug out and use a tool. We weren't able to buy that tool, and we're on a serious schedule with SEMA, so there are some kind of DIY methods to use a piece of welding rod and feel when it is up at its highest. We're gonna do that, and then we'll mark it on the crank when we have top dead center. Then there's no way that timing light is we're gonna have to use the timing light from underneath as well. Everything's so cramped in here, we're gonna have to do about half of this project from underneath. So I'm going under the car, Oscar's going in from the side, we're gonna get this done. All right, well, we went through the procedure of setting the timing, but the timing was correct. So now we're modifying some fuel, trying to take out a little bit of fuel and see if that helps at all.
I'd say it's running about, yeah, it's running about 5 degrees off. Oh.
Yeah, the fuel, I mean, the exhaust is just absolutely horrid looking. All right, boys, we have found our problem with the help of Haltech. They have pointed out our mistake, we didn't know. So we were switching from a Gen 3 harness, because originally when we built this, when we had Haltech send us this harness and we were planning our motor build, we were actually planning on having a Gen 3 block. So they gave us a Gen 3 harness, cam sensor, harness basically set up. When you switch over to Gen 4, it actually changes things. So we need to rewire ours a little bit. We believe we need to swap these 2 wires on the outside, and then it'll start to, the computer will start to understand things a lot more, because that's a very important sensor. So we're gonna get those swapped around, and fingers crossed. This was not without drama, this startup of ours, and we still have a ton of fuel, which we're not sure if this problem will get solved on its own or not, but this is a step in the right direction. Alrighty, we fixed our cam sensor. We were able to verify it. The software has now found it. So we are looking really, really good. We're gonna go ahead now and try for our first start. There, we may still have an overfueling issue, but this will get us a lot closer. We'll see how it goes. All right, everything's ready. Here we go. It was running great. I tried to give it a little throttle to bring the RPM up, and I completely killed it.
Really?
Yeah. Like the second I really started to tap on it, it just died on us.
Okay, let me look at the log and see what it did.
Okay. That's so cool. Yeah.
Great.
Oh yeah, that looks good right until the end. Woo! Dude, we got fuel on the camera lens. We were shooting fuel all the way out here. All right. Engine break-in time. Here we go. What you guys just saw right there was our first cycle of the break-in period. So you heat the engine up, you rev it up to, you know, between 2,000, 3,000 and 1,500 RPM, and you know, stay in a variable range, and you get the engine up to temperature, and then you bring it back down. So you hear our cooling system is running and bringing this thing on back down. One really cool thing is all of our radiators up front are all feeling like the same temperature, but definitely warm. So we're cooling down through all the radiators like very equally as well. So that's a really, really good feeling. So that's our first one. We need to do that 3 times. And then the interesting thing is Texas Speed says after you do this up and down 3 times, they're like, put some power through this thing, man. Get it on the dyno, break it in hard, and put a lot of horsepower down, and that'll get the engine used to doing that for the rest of its life. Basically is what they said. They're like, if you break it in by just trotting around town, it's gonna be a wuss, and if you break it in hardcore, it's gonna be a hardcore engine. So we have to get this to a dyno before SEMA, which is a top priority for us right now. And also I wanted to be able to run at SEMA, and it's really, really rough right now. We don't have the knowledge. Huge thanks to Rick over at Haltech for staying up with us very late. His time, man, it must be past midnight on a Friday night. I'm sure he's got more fun things to be doing, but instead he was here helping us. That was so cool. He did some really magic stuff that we would have absolutely not been able to do using his knowledge of tuning to get us to a point where we can actually heat cycle this bad boy. All right, the engine has cooled down. We're gonna go for the second heat cycle. Here we go. What's up, guys? Guys, I'm back for the next day. It's just me in the shop today for the last day of break-in. Let me just say that last night was a little bit bittersweet. So it was really awesome that we got the engine running. It sounds great. It's functioning really well. But there's a couple problem areas. So it's like really highs and really lows, right? So first I was really nervous, and then it took forever for us to get it to start because of the sensor issue. Then we got it to start up and it ran. I was really excited, and then I realized some of the massive problems that we have, and today's been a little bit of a low. I gotta speed this up, so I'm gonna start talking very fast. Today marks 20 days left before SEMA. If everything would have went really well, we would have been kind of on track to have a really busy 3 weeks before SEMA, and that didn't happen. Everything didn't go really well. The engine did great. We made a mistake, and I'm really frustrated about it, and it's pretty much 100% my fault. When we were doing the break-in yesterday, the engine was going up to at its highest about 3,000 RPMs and back down to 1,500, like the guys at Texas Speed told us to. And as we were just even in the 2,000 range, these exhaust manifolds were getting glowing red. That's with no boost, so that's not even under serious load. And that is because that the walls are so thin. Now, if you guys have been watching the whole build process, you guys know that we had a lot of stumbles around our exhaust manifolds, and we started in a bad place, which was my own fault. Is I was just trying to get stuff that we could next day offline and then cut it up and utilize it, and the wall thickness was way too thin on it. This is getting a little long-winded, so I apologize, guys. We are going to run this thing a little bit more later, but I got to get this out. Okay, so you guys probably saw exhaust was wobbling a lot as we were revving. That's because we don't have our exhaust mounts installed yet. So once we install those, that will silence a little bit of the wobbling, which will help those exhaust manifolds not want to break. But the amount of weight that we have of the turbocharger and the exhaust pipes hanging off of it on top of that exhaust manifold, if it gets too hot, it will just break, because we can't have anything on top of the turbos kind of holding them up, like taking the weight off of the turbos, and we can't support it from underneath on the bottom of the engine because of the way that they're placed either. So really what it gets down to is the exhaust manifolds metal is just too thin. Now, originally, we didn't really think this was going to be a big problem, because I didn't think that we had to go to the dyno before SEMA. I thought we could just drive this thing pretty easily, pretty moderately. If it broke, no big deal, and then and we would fix it and we would upgrade. So I saw your guys' comments saying about the thin metal, and as soon as we read those comments, we were like, duh, we shouldn't have done that, right? We knew that as soon as we were done, but we have a methodology here on B is for Build of, as long as it's not safety related, just build it, then break it, then we can fix it if we need to. You know, welders are not very far away in this shop, right? So we could fix it. But the problem is now that I've talked with Texas Speed and learned about the fact that after this break-in procedure, we need to run the car very hard. I mentioned that earlier in the episode. So then to drive out of SEMA to go to the SEMA Ignited thing, that's like a 1.5 hour idle fest, right? We could push the car through, I wouldn't really care. But I also want to drive that thing, I want to drive this home from SEMA as well, or I want to get some highway miles on it. We can't do that unless we've really worked in the engine hard. So now we have less time because we have to go to a dyno, and I don't think those things will live through the dyno. So to be honest with you guys and truthful, I'm pretty bummed today. I'm like not in a great mood because I'm upset with myself that we didn't solve this problem as soon as we found out about it. But also, we didn't know how big the problem was going to be, so we didn't know if it needed immediate solving. And then we also, I did a lot of research and figuring out and talking to different fabricators and different things about how hard it would be to solve this problem. And nothing really came about where it wasn't going to put us in such a screwed situation as we're in right now anyways. We're in the same problem, it's just we're a little bit closer to SEMA, so there's less wiggle room. Luckily, on the bright side of this, I did get a hold of ETS this morning. They are the only people I really know that could get us out of this jam, because they are such a big company. They make so many exhaust manifolds. They actually have the material on hand that it would take to rebuild these out of thicker material. So hopefully ETS will completely save us. If we can get the materials, that just gets us one step closer to the possibility of rebuilding these things in time. So I don't think we have the time. I've talked with Oscar. He doesn't think we have the time, but we don't really have a lot of options. So we both know, hey, there's no time to do this, but we have to do this. Welcome to B is for Build. So there you guys go. I wanted to keep you guys up to date with the build and everything that's going on. It's really funny that I know earlier in this episode I did mention, like things get nervous and you want to slow down because you don't want to find out what's over that hill, right? Upside, we didn't break the engine. Engine break-in has been actually going in very well. We took the brake out of the break-in, so that's going good. And yeah, we found some stumbling parts, but we will find a way to fix that. Now, the last hiccup that we have, if you're still watching, thank you. The last hiccup that we have is that our coolant system was overflowing and it looked like it was boiling over at 220 degrees. It shouldn't be doing that because if you have pressure on the system, the water shouldn't boil at 220. We're using just plain water because you know, we don't want to hurt the animals around here or anything like that. Just plain water for now, but really with the right amount of pressure, we shouldn't be boiling over. So I'm buying a pressure testing kit right now. So we're gonna go ahead and install that on our radiator right now, test our pressures and make sure that our caps are pressurizing the system to the right PSI. And then we could keep troubleshooting from there. As soon as I get that, I'm gonna go ahead and install it on there, and we just have to verify that the system can stay pressurized enough, because if we can hold the pressure in there, then the water will not boil. That's just science. So we gotta figure out where we're losing pressure, how it's happening, etc., etc. I went through and checked the cooling system all the way through, pressure tested both sides, we're all good there. I checked our return line from the steam vent kit, we're all good there. Science says this should not boil over again. We're gonna fire it up, we're gonna run our third heat cycle, and we're gonna cross our fingers. Let's do this. That last heat cycle went a lot better. Exhaust manifold's still totally a problem, but the cooling system worked as expected. So those of you that paid attention in science class know that the coolant will, the more pressure it's under, the hotter it has to get to boil, and you can calculate the boiling point using different graphs and stuff online. So this is under 1.3 bar of pressure, so it should boil over at about 224, which it did at exactly 224 because it's just raw water. Once we put in a water wetter or some antifreeze, that pressure, the temperature that it'll be able to withstand will go up significantly because LS engines do like to run a little bit hotter. So like 230, 240 isn't the end of the world for an LS. You don't want to run it there for a long time, but it can do it. So then after that, we went ahead and just tested out fans on our cooling system. Mishimoto sent us some fans, but we want to repaint all our radiators before we install them. So we tested that out and it worked really, really well. So that's awesome. Good news on the cooling system. Before I go, guys, if you're at all interested in SEMA, I want to remind you of some cool stuff. So SEMA is basically invite only. I've been getting a lot of emails if I could get people to pass the SEMA. I can't do that. If you are a student, you may be able to get one through your school. If you act now, you might be able to do that if like you're in the area or you're going. We are doing guest signings where myself, Oscar, and Kyle will all be at the Garrett Turbo booth on some day. Wednesday at 3 p.m. we'll be at the Garrett Turbo booth where our car is going to be. We're all going to be there. We got some really cool stuff that we've made to give away as well, and we'd love to see you. Thursday we will be at the Koenig Wheels booth from 1 to 3. You guys will know that's a booth that we were at last year. We're just going to come by, hang out with our friends, and meet everybody and say hi. And Trevor from Motion Auto TV, I believe, is the car that's featured in that booth, so it'll be a really cool time. And finally, again this year, I am a judge for the SEMA Young Guns Battle of the Builders competition. So the best way to watch all of this is on my Instagram. BS for Build on Instagram. Follow us on there. I'll be posting in stories and different posts, updating you guys on how our build's going, how the meet and greets are going, schedule changes, anything like that. And most importantly, all the cool builds that we're going to see at Battle of the Builders. So be sure to watch us there. And then I'm done talking. In the next episode, we have an insane amount of stuff to do. We have like no time to do it. So if you like semi-organized, chaotic building, you're not gonna wanna miss this one. Man, the hype is real. Okay, see you guys later. Bye. Peace!
Come on!